G'day ladies and gentlemen, Scotty D here from the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network, and welcome into our next installment in our How to Play Warhammer 40,000 10th edition series. Alrighty everyone, so welcome in to our next installment in our How to Play Warhammer 40,000 10th edition series here on the ATWN, where we're continuing to look at the core mechanics of the game, the different ways you're able to play the game, as well as how to go about constructing army lists as well. And for today's video, we're going to be continuing our look at the phases of the battle round by taking a look at the last phase in the battle round, which is the fight phase, and how to go about conducting close combat in 10th edition of the game. There's a lot involved in the fight phase, so let's jump straight on in. So the first element of the fight phase is what units are actually eligible to fight during the fight phase. Now, a unit is eligible to fight if either of the following apply to it. It is within engagement range of at least one enemy unit, or it has made a charge move this turn. It's also important to note that a unit cannot fight more than once in a phase, so once it has fought, it is no longer eligible to fight. Now, there may be some codex-specific rules that might come out in the future that allow units to fight twice, but those are yet to be seen, at least from what I have seen. Now, the second part of the fight phase is the order in which your units fight. The order in which your units are able to fight always follows the same structure. Units with the fight's first ability are resolved in the first step, and then all remaining combats are then resolved in the second step. This is a bit of a deviation away from combat in 9th edition, as there was also rules for an additional step in this process as well in terms of fighting last. However, they have removed that, so we no longer have to worry about that in 10th edition. It is also important to note here that units that made a charge move in the charge phase also gain the benefit of the fight first ability until the end of the turn. So this is where if you do charge, you get the benefit of fights first as well. When selecting units to fight, players actually alternate between picking one unit each, starting with the player who doesn't have the active turn and fighting with that unit. So this is a little bit of a change again from 9th edition, where the player who had the active turn, at least in the fight's first step, got to pick, and then when it went to all the remaining combats or the fighting last step, the non-active player would actually get to choose first. So this is a little bit of a change there. Now, once a player has resolved all of their units, the other can resolve any of their remaining eligible units that can fight during this step one at a time. Now, once both players have no remaining eligible units to fight in the fight's first step, then you move on to the remaining combat step. Now, after all eligible units for both players have been resolved, then the fight phase comes to an end. So it's also important to note that whilst you are resolving some fighting units, units that were ineligible to actually fight at the start of the fight phase may become eligible to fight and be selected to fight during the fight phase, and these units will actually be activated and resolved during the remaining combat step of the fight phase as well. So that could happen through a variety of different moves that we'll be talking about in a second. So now that we've kind of looked at how the ordering of the fight phase works and what you need to be doing for that, we're now actually going to look at the steps that are involved when you go to select your units to fight. So when you first select a unit to fight, the first step is that they make a pile-in move. Now, when a unit makes a pile-in move, they make a 3-inch movement with each model that is not already in base-to-base contact with an enemy model. For this pile-in move to be possible, the chosen unit must be able to end the move within engagement range of one or more enemy units whilst also maintaining unit coherency. If these conditions can't be met, then the unit actually cannot perform a pile-in move during this fight phase. When making a pile-in move, each model must end the move close to the closest enemy model and in base contact with an enemy model if possible, while satisfying the previous conditions of maintaining unit coherency, as well as being within engagement range. After you've resolved the unit's pile-in move, if they are able to make one, you then move on to making the unit's melee attacks. Now, before making any attacks with any of your models, you actually need to determine which models are going to be able to make these melee attacks against your enemy's unit. The models that are eligible to make melee attacks are either within engagement range of an enemy model or in base contact with a friendly model that is within engagement range. Now, we will have some examples later on in this video to talk a bit more and show you some examples of all of these rules to show you in real time what that does look like as well. Now, after you've determined who is actually eligible to make melee attacks, you then need to select the melee weapon that you're going to fight with for them. Now, each model can only fight with one melee weapon that is listed on their data sheet, and if they've got more than one, you have to pick which one they're going to make attacks with. Now, once you have chosen which weapons you'll be using, you need to declare what models in the unit will be attacking with what weapons before you continue. If a weapon has got multiple profiles that it can be used by a model, then you must select which profile that for that weapon that model will use when making its attacks with it. When a model makes melee attacks, much like when making range attacks, they have a number of attacks equal to the attacks characteristic of the chosen weapon. Now, the next step in resolving a fight is after you select your melee weapons, you then select your targets. Now, before you make any melee attacks, you need to choose the target of all your melee attacks that your chosen unit is going to make. You can select any enemy unit that is within engagement range or in base contact with another model from its own unit that is within base contact with it to make melee attacks against. Now, if the melee attack has got more than one attack it is making, then you can split the number of attacks between different targets, or you can declare them all against the one target. This does deviate away from ranged weapons where you have to declare all of their attacks against the one target, rather than being able to go, I'm going to put one bot rifle shot here and one bot rifle shot there. Now, if a unit has got more than one model, then each model can make its attacks against the same or different targets. So depending on where they're engaged, you can actually declare those differently. We'll have some examples around that too. When you declare all of your attacks, you must declare where all of your attacks are going before you make any attack rolls, when you are going to actually determine the results of your attacks against the enemy unit. Now, in the case there are no eligible targets to fight against, then the unit can't make any melee attacks this phase, but it is still eligible to make a consolidation move that we'll talk about in a second here. Now, after you've declared the attacks for all models that are in the eligible unit to make attacks from the chosen unit, you then follow the making attack sequence that we covered in the shooting phase and making attacks video previously. I'm not going to go through that process again and rehash it. You can go back and refer to that video that we've already done that does explain that process as well. Now, after you've resolved all the attacks against the target unit or units, then you move on to the consolidation step. Now, each time a unit consolidates, you can make a move of up to 3 inches for each model that is not within base-to-base contact with an enemy model. Now, to make a consolidation move, you must be able to reach engagement range of one or more enemy units whilst maintaining unit coherency with the consolidation move. Now, in the event you cannot meet either of these conditions, then each model can make a consolidation move towards the closest objective marker instead. However, you can only do this if you're going to end up within range of that objective marker, whilst also maintaining unit coherency for your unit. Now, if these conditions can't be met for consolidating into an objective marker, then the unit just cannot make a consolidation move whatsoever, which is another deviation away from the 9th edition rules, where you could just always make a 3-inch consolidation move no matter what the status was of your combat. Now, if the chosen unit does make a consolidation move when it's already within engagement range of one or more enemy units, then models in that unit must end their consolidation move closer to the closest enemy model that they are able to access. If they are able to make base-to-base contact with an enemy model whilst maintaining unit coherency, then they must also do that as well. You can't not make base-to-base contact, very similar as we discussed in the charge phase. If you can base, you must base. Now, much like when you're making charge moves and pile-ins, the controlling player actually gets to determine the order in which models are moved in as well. So you can move some of your closer models first so they can get into base to base, and then allow other models that weren't able to attack during the fight because they were maybe too far away to actually get into base to base with a friendly model so they can then fight themselves during the next close combat round. Now, that's a lot of information that occurs during the fight phase when fighting with your units. So we're actually going to jump into a few examples here. So you're actually going to be able to see what these rules mean on the tabletop for your pile-in move, making attacks, declaring attacks in different units, declaring attacks with different profiles and such, and also making consolidation moves onto not just into close combat with other units or when you're already still engaged, but also onto objectives and such as well.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to do a couple of examples now in terms of how to actually resolve close combats in varying different circumstances. So the first one we've got is we've got a unit of 5 Vanguard veterans that are going to be charging into a unit of 10 Necron Warriors, so we are going to charge, make the charge roll first, which is going to be an 8. So as we did in the charge phase video, you're going to move each one those 8 inches, and if they can base, they must base. So we're actually going to move them onto that objective and get some of these guys over to there, whilst also getting some of the others into engagement range as well. Now, that is their charge move done. Now, we are going to go and we're going to select the Vanguard veterans to fight. And so by doing so, we get to go through the following steps that we covered earlier in this video. So we're going to do the pile-in move first. So we're going to be able to move each of these Vanguard veterans 3 inches. And this is going to enable some of them to actually get around. Some of them are already into base contact, others weren't, so we're getting them into there. And so now we've actually got all 5 in base to base or within that engagement range, and so now they're going to perform their attacks. And so the Vanguard veterans have got Vanguard veteran weapons, which are 4 attacks each, so each one is going to have those 4 attacks. They are going to be hitting on 3s. They're strength 5, -1 AP and 1 damage. And when they do charge as well, they have the lethal hits ability, which we will talk about in the next video, but we will not worry about that for these attacks. So we've got 20 attacks now that we're going to get. So we're looking for 3s. We've got a few that have missed that did roll off camera. So we've got 4 misses and the rest have hit. So it does mean we've got 16 hits there. And now, with them being at strength 5, the toughness of the warriors is toughness 4. So we are looking for 3s to wound. And we've got 1 cocked dice there that we will reroll. Okay, so by looks, we've got 1, 2, 3 that have failed to wound. So that means there's going to be 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. Arm saves need to be taken by the warriors, which does mean that they are going to be at -1 damage. -1 AP. So it means the Necron warriors are going to need 5 ups to make their arm saves against these attacks. So we did have a few roll off camera there as well. So we've got currently 6 successes, which means we have got 7 failures. So we are going to take 7 of these guys away. And they are dead. Of course, they get their reanimation protocols when they get to their turn. And then the Necron Warriors, there's no other combats at the moment, so the Necron Warriors are going to get to make their attacks back. But before they do, the Vanguard veterans do also get to make their consolidation move. So this guy will move the 3 inches there. This guy will move 3 inches to around here. And the other 3 are already still in base contact. And so then Necron Warriors will activate. They'll get their 3 attacks back. Hitting on, I believe it is going to be 4s. So we've only got the 1 hit there. And then wounding on 4s. That will wound. So just 1 armor save for the Vanguard veterans, which does fail. The Vanguard veterans are 2 wounds each, so it will mean that one of the Vanguard veterans is down to a single wound. I'll just move that wound marker down to the close guy so you guys can see. And then, because they're already in base-to-base contact, they couldn't pile in and couldn't do a consolidation move. But that is kind of the basics of how you handle a simple close combat like this one. Alrighty, so now we have got another example that we're going to show. We're going to show a unit of 5 Deathwatch veterans on this right-hand side that are going to charge into both the Necron Warriors as well as the Lich Guard, and we're going to do some different attacks with different melee weapons into different targets and such here. So we're going to just resolve their charge first, declaring both as the targets of the charge, by which they get 6 inches, which is going to enable them to get within base contact of each unit, whilst also maintaining unit coherency. And then this guy will just go into there. And so then, because they were the unit that charged, they get to activate first. Of course, if they can base, they must base. So we've already based a few of them here. But then we've got this one guy at the back who is going to pile in just into this pocket right here as well. So currently we have got 3 long vigil melee weapons in there, and we've got 2 guys with just regular close combat weapons. So what we're going to do in terms of targets, we're going to target both units. We have got 2 guys with long vigil melee weapons going into the Lich Guard, and then we've got at least 1 close combat weapon and then 1 long vigil melee weapon going into the warriors, and then this guy gets to choose where his attacks go because he is in base contact with both of with models that are within engagement range of each unit. So he's actually going to declare his attacks into the warriors as well. So we'll do all the attacks against the warriors. So each close combat weapon is going to be 3 attacks. So we've got 6 attacks total going into the warriors. So these will be hitting on 3s, by which all hit. And then these will be wounding on 4s. So we only get the 2 wounds there. So then the Necron Warriors have to make 2 4-up saves because there's no AP on this one. They pass both of their saves with that one there. Then we've got the Long Vigil melee weapon that gets to make 3 attacks into the Warriors. Hitting on 3s again, all 3 hit. These are strength 5, so they'll be wounding on 3s, however. So we get 2 successes, 1 fail. And these are at an AP of -2, so it means the Necron Warriors are going to need a 6-up save to pass. 1 fails already, and there's 1 cock dice there, and that will fail as well. So 2 of the warriors will die, and pop them off to the side there as well. So now we've done all the attacks into the warriors. Now we're going to do all the attacks into the Lich Guard. So we're going to have 6 attacks going into the Lich Guard. These will be hitting on 3s with long vigil melee weapons. So 4 hits. And these will be wounding on, if I just check the updated Lich Guard, 1. No, it will be wounding on 4s, strength 5 into toughness 5, and there's only the 1 wound. Lich Guard have got their shield, so it means they've got a 4-up invulnerable save, which they pass, so they take no damage, and that's how you kind of split attacks against multiple targets if you do a multi-charge. And a really simple example there. We would also then have to consolidate this guy in the middle, but because he's already as close as he can be to an enemy unit, he can't actually consolidate any further. Alrighty, so next up we're going to do some charging and resolve some combat with some Necrons to show you some different things that you're able to do with pile-in moves and consolidation. So we're going to have the Lich Guard actually declare the charge just against the intercessors that are sitting on the objective. Well, not sitting on the objective, sorry. They are going to get a 7-inch for their charge, which means they're going to be able to move a decent way, and we're actually going to be able to get 2 that are going to be able to go onto there. We'll also grab another 1, 2, and then the last guy will move to base in there with that intent. So now we're going to get to resolve the attacks of the Lich Guard because they've got fights first. So they've got solid 3 attacks apiece, coming to a total of 15 attacks. They're hitting on 3s. These are at strength 6, -2, 1 damage each. So a lot of attacks going into the intercessors. So we have got a lot of failures there. Now we might not actually be able to show you, depending on how some of these rolls go. So we've got 7 misses out of the 15. And then these are going to be wounding on 3s because the intercessors are only toughness of 4. So there is going to be a total of 5 wounds. Now these are at an AP of -2. So it means that the intercessors are going to be on a 5-up save, their armor saves, of which they pass 2. So it means 1 is dead with 1 wound remaining. And we're going to grab that guy. And he's dead, and we're going to have 1 on a wound remaining. So now that these guys have activated, we get to do a consolidation move. So what we can actually do with this is, because these guys are actually closer to this enemy unit, they'd have to consolidate towards them whilst maintaining unit coherency. So they would actually be able to engage the incursors, and then whilst maintaining unit coherency, this guy should be able to pile in here, and they're still within that 2 inches for unit coherency. And so then the intercessors would get to fight back against the Lich Guard, as would the incursors, because they weren't eligible to fight at the start of the fight phase, but because they're within engagement range of an enemy unit, during the next step of the remaining combat step of the fight phase, they would be able to be selected to fight into the Lich Guard as well. So that's just something you can do to bear in mind to get models into different positions and such as well, whilst maintaining unit coherency. You can engage other units with consolidation moves and such as well. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so the last combat I want to show you guys in terms of how to do things is what it's going to look like to consolidate onto an objective without an enemy unit being on there, as the previous example did have the incursors there. So we've got the incursors again, but this time they're staring down the barrel of a unit of Scorpec destroyers that are about to charge them. And so the charge range for the Scorpecs is going to be 4 inches, which is enough to get them within that engagement range. And those two will base there, and then this gentleman will be able to base this guy over here. And so I'll just carefully remove those dice out of the way. So we've got those two. What we might actually do just for this example, we'll just reposition them a little bit, just to show you what it would be like to actually have to consolidate onto that objective, because it was just towing on there, which is not what we wanted. So the Scorpec destroyers have got 4 attacks apiece. So it means we're looking at a total of 12 attacks. These are hitting on 3s, and they're re-rolling the hit because of the unit's ability. They did make a charge move. So we had 1 hit roll off on camera, and then 2 other misses there, but the rest have already hit. And then we've got the re-rolls there with 1 hit and 1 fail to hit. And then these are strength 7. So we are looking for 3s here. They are -2 damage each. All right, so we've got now 1, 2, 3, 4 failures, which means there's going to be 7 successful wounds against the incursors. So they've got to make 7 5-up saves. And we'll see how they go. So unfortunately, we've got 3 that have succeeded, which is going to end up killing 4 of them. And so what we're going to do is, obviously, that's not the greatest thing. So we'll say that one of those did end up failing. So they kill the unit, just for our example here. And then going to the consolidation step, what will then happen is, because there's no enemy units closer to them, they actually get to then consolidate those 3 inches onto that objective to actually make sure that they are able to do a consolidation move. And that's how that example works when it comes to consolidating onto an objective after you have no enemy units that you're able to consolidate into after a fight phase, and you're able to get within range of the objective marker as well.
Now, once you have resolved all of the combat that your units are involved with, that is the end of the current player's turn, and then you'll go through the same turn process that we've just looked at in the past few videos over again for the other player until you then have both done complete turns, and then that is the end of the battle round, and you move on to the next battle round where you go through the exact same process again for a total of 5 battle rounds in the game. So this actually finishes our look at the phases of the game that are involved in the battle round. However, we still got plenty more rules that we're going to be looking at in this series, so there's going to be a lot more information in it coming up in the future as well. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone for sticking with us for this video. I hope you did enjoy the explanation of the fight phase and how you go about resolving your combat with your units when you are in close combat, as well as the various moves and conditions around getting a little bit of extra movement during the fight phase as well, with your units getting into close combat as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I also want to thank everyone who has been subscribing and viewing our content here on YouTube as of late. I do really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and if you do want to keep being notified about more content we are creating here on the ATWN, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so you can be notified. We are also over 2 of the 3 benchmarks for reaching community monetization. We just need to get our watch hours up. So if you are able to do that, we're going to have a lot of tournament games coming up from Exterminatus. We're also going to be covering Adelaide Uprising and a bunch of other tournaments in the new year, as well as a whole heap of other content we're going to be creating as well. So there's going to be a lot of fresh content coming out for you to enjoy. So you can help us with those watch hours if you feel so inclined to do so. And I also want to say, if you do want to watch any of our hobbying sessions, or when I'm working on commission painting, or when we might be doing tournament previews or tournament coverage, feel free to head over to Twitch, find the Australis TWN Twitch channel, drop it with a follow, turn on that notification bell as well, so you're able to be notified when we do start the streams, and you'll be able to see what content we are creating over there live in real time, and ask any questions you have around gaming or events or hobbying and such of myself or the people who are on as well. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.